Dear friends, let's talk about intellectuality, intellectual person, enlightenment. Who do you think is an intellectual person, enlightened person? Somebody who is very knowledgeable, somebody who is highly educated, or somebody with highest IQ, very smart? Not necessarily. To be intellectual means the same as to be open-minded. When we open our mind to any ideas, even those belief ideas that we don't like in appearance, or we do not follow, do not agree, if we welcome those, any ideas, and not only welcome them, but actively and positively think about them, analyze them, criticize them, and try to innovate something on that area. Talking about being intellectually active. Also to update ourselves. And generally, our minds, our mindset, our thought has to be updated because there is a fundamental law in the universe. We cannot avoid but apply that one in our thought as well. And that is change. Everything is in the process of change, even those things that we firmly believe. By having our mind open, we find there's more to learn, to correct ourselves, to get better idea of it. There's no end to that one, to always becoming more enlightened. At the same time, we have to watch in order to be enlightened and open-minded, to keep the ego away. Ego or selfishness will discriminate and creates prejudice and will not look at everything on the basis of finding the truth and reveal what is there. So we should fight with ego, keep it away, as well as the tendency we all have to look at surface and to also keep our mind rigid or freeze it. We say, well, okay, I found the truth. I found what I need to know. And I'm going to keep it. It's my possession, my intellectual possession. Wrong. There is not such a thing. We cannot own our intellectuality. It is a process. It's always to be updated. So fighting against rigidity of mind, dogmatism in fact, and also against ego is the condition. So when we look at these factors carefully, watch for that, we will be enlightened. And actually we enter into a new dimension of life, intellectuality. And that's actually the life of human. We are not only a body and material or a biological being, we're intellectual being. But the question here is that you may ask yourself, oh, am I intellectual? I should say, yes, you are. To some extent, we are intellectual based on the faculty of thinking we have. However, it's like a spectrum. And it ranges from minimum to maximum. There is no limit to it, of course. The more we think deeper and be more open-minded, the more we will be intellectual. Now, how we can practically raise this level of intellectuality, every human being. The best thing is intellectual dialogue. That requires freedom of expression and the means to do this dialogue, which is fortunately not hard to reach today by this advancement of communication technology. So it would be fun, it would be real joy that we join others in further exploring more, not about our day-to-day business life. That doesn't need to be to thinking deeply, or go into an intellectual dialogue on fundamental issues, who we are, what we can make out of our life, of journey of life, how much we can get bigger by our thought and mind, by opening our mind. That is true intellectual dialogue. And practically today, especially with this technology, we can reach each other's site, the same as we get into the site in internet. We can enter into the site of person's mind, and the portal is our talk and exchange of views and ideas are free of ego, so that we would be opening ourselves, our mind, to what people say. No matter what, we may not believe it. We may say, well, it's something very much superficial, but still listening to it. Let's keep in our mind that every single person of that 8 billion people on the world will see the fact, the reality outside from some certain angle that we don't see. So what's the best? The more we expose ourselves, our mind, to different ideas, with absolutely in the absence of ego. In other words, it is perhaps not difficult, and it's very important to do, that we remove the ego from our intellectual life. We say it's the truth. I don't like that to be the truth this way, the truth, but it is, and I accept that. And that has a lot of consequences for our growth, for our, in fact, transcendence, becoming more human, becoming more, in fact, intellectual. We get closer to each other by our mind, with no clashes, because there's no ego. When there's ego, the dialogue will change into fight, into argument, not into intellectual development and further becoming more intellectual. So it's a very important part there. It can lead to actually peace and even loving relations through this intellectual dialogue, because we turn into, each one of us actually will turn into the part of a whole, the cell of a global intellectuality or global consciousness. And we keep raising the level of this consciousness, each one of us. Actually, there's no other way around. No matter how many books we read in isolation, we can't be as much intellectual as we can do through dialogue, through listening and discussing, very much in a loving relations, because we all are contributing the same thing that we all share. And when we do this one, my friends, there's something else that happens that helps us. It would remove the fear from us. Have you noticed that sometimes when it happened to all of us, we say, wait a minute, what I'm doing? Am I right on what I'm doing? Is it my mindset, my paradigm is just the correct one, or I am under delusion? Which one? By the way, paradigm is also important to watch for, because sometimes you're sure that you're thinking well and deeply thinking and even having dialogue with others, but you have a wrong paradigm that you should shift it. Paradigm is the framework, the pattern of thinking. If that is not correct, or needed to change, then all we do, we are in a wrong framework, and that will go wrong. Maybe I give you an example of that one because it makes it clear. Today, in this type of consumer society we have, produce to consume and rush to get more money, we are missing something. We are in a wrong paradigm to some extent, more or less, all of us. And that is, we think that money is the determiner of any value. That's what market says. We forget that is only one dimension of life that needs that. We neglect the others ourselves, the real self of us, our spiritual life, our intellectual life, which is the one only for human and not other species. All other things we do to every day that for all species to make a living, the second one is the main one. And with this paradigm, we neglect our spiritual needs or our intellectual needs. And the consequences of them are huge, a lot. And there's not time to discuss about it. But however, just to keep in mind that fear, what I am not sure about what I'm doing, will disappear by being open to all ideas, getting into this vast intellectual dialogue. It gives us peace and sort of stability, and the fear disappears gradually. Finally, this intellectual dialogue, open-minded, would help us to get everything in our mind clearer. As the word enlightenment says, give it light and get out of darkness. For example, the concepts of love with this intellectuality changes. We are no longer thinking of the shadow or the mirage of love, which is the temporary or perhaps longer relations of two people who have something in common or have some interest with each other. And that's all. And the outsiders are not part of that love that we have. We find that there is fundamental and actually universal law, as Albert Einstein said, that all other laws come from that love. And through that dialogue, actually, we can feel it. We can feel the oneness. The concept of morality will change. We don't see morality as something coming from outside, like the thing most people do, or what the certain ideologies and beliefs is. We find it through our dialogue and defeating the ego that how much are important those principles of moralities, like truthfulness, honesty, and we can become to the conclusion that it can't be other way around. Dishonesty doesn't make sense. Can't work, as Immanuel Kant said. Those principles of moralities and virtues are actually absolute. There's no issue to talk about that. Categorical imperative, as he says. We believe in them, no matter who says what. At the same time, the concept of education and science changes, and we get a better idea. Science is extremely good for us to explore the law of nature, but if we ignore the morality of them, we'll end up with creating atomic bomb and kill each other. We end up with killing our other species. We end up with polluting air, water, everything. So we get deeper to this concept. The concept of family changes. We understand that family is an institute as a crucible to shape the character of a child, and not a temporary or longer term of cohabitation to have child or not. That institute is something that we cannot take it easily or ignore it. That should be a sort of a must. Same concept of religion get clearer to us. We find that there is so much in common with all religions, of the basic humanity there, and we can also find that there are other things in each religion that causes the conflict or division that might be not really part of religion. It's like superstitions or histories that is different thing. We get a clear idea, and we see that we will look deeper to the faith of every religion else, that it also can help our dialogue, intellectual dialogue, and intellectuality. Same as concept of justice changes, and we find that justice is not punishing somebody and let it go and forget the case. It's just healing justice, to go after to find what happened and target or aim at the root of it to correct it and change it. Thanks for watching. There's a lot more to say about that one, but in simple words, open-minded person, intellectual person, enlightened person, who could be all of us, will give us the pleasure of life that we never get it without it. Thank you again.